Have you ever had a near-death experience? Or perhaps someone you know may have had a near-death experience? Well, if so, we would love to hear your story and have you as a guest on our podcast. For more information, visit NDE.world. Again, that's NDE.world. We would love to hear your story.
Welcome to the NDE World Podcast, where we explore the magical, mystical, and spiritual world of near-death experiences. And now, Ashton Lewis and Daphne Lynn.
Welcome back to the NDE World Podcast. I am your host, Ashton Lewis, and my lovely co-host, Miss Daphne Lynn. Good morning, Miss Daphne. How you doing today, girl?
I'm doing absolutely wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. Thank you for asking. Another day vertical.
Yeah, the Lord didn't have to wake us up this morning, did he?
That's right. That's right. But I've got to question, even though it's another day vertical, that's an old expression. In other words, like you said, good Lord didn't have to wake us up this morning, but we're here. Is it actually better on the other side? I say it's another day vertical, but then again, the opposite of that,
Right. Would we
be better off on the other side than just waking up another day here?
Going home. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Get you thinking.
It will. Most definitely. It's definitely interesting. You just reminded me of a little something someone told me the other day. I was out taking care of some errands, and there was this couple standing there, and we kind of right in each other's zones, and I was like, "Oh, excuse me, how y'all doing today?" And they was like, "We were doing good." I said, "Well, y'all have a blessed day." And he said, "It was a blessing when we woke up this morning." And I said, "That is so right."
That's right. Everything is a blessing.
It is.
Everything you see, everything you touch, everything you smell, everything you feel, everything you do.
No matter how deluded we are with our reality, we may be having trials and tribulations that we are facing that overwhelms us. But you're alive. You have blessings beyond counting that you're not looking at.
That's
if you're
right.
Looking at everything from the negative side. There's two sides to every coin. And it is a blessing to have life on this side of the veil and the other side as well. I mean, you really have to just open your heart, your mind, let them connect, and realize that we are more than this physical body.
Absolutely. And it has to do with your focus as well. Wherever you focus your attention is pretty much where you're going to go. Mm-hmm. Well, what we're going to do today, let's do it. I tell you what, for those new listeners out there, let's do a super quick rundown on actually what we do. And, we are an NDE, and that is an acronym for the Near-Death Experience World. So we're an NDE World Podcast. And we just, pretty much cover the near-death experience world, and we do the like reviews and interviews and comments and things like that. So if you're interested in the near-death experience world, then you're in the right place for sure. So.
Extraordinary experiences, spiritual experiences. I mean, even if you've had some kind of like alien or UFOs,
come on,
just
bring it
whatever
on.
your experience is, we would love to hear it. And that's why we call it NDE World, because it's more than just the NDEs. We're going to cover every topic we can as far as supernatural stuff.
That sounds good. That sounds real good. Well, what are some of the basic elements of an NDE? Now, an NDE or near-death experience is an experience that will bring someone close to death, where they've almost died. That could be an accident. It could be a heart attack. It could be anything that could bring a person to the edge, to the brink. And that's the actual near-death experience. Now, the near-death experience is usually comprised of a lot of different elements, and those elements change for every individual.
Yeah.
Every single experience is different. It's
no two are alike.
It's very catered to that individual.
Exactly.
Now, there are a lot of common elements that we do see a lot of them. The out-of-body experience really is the main element of the near-death experience, where people shift over into that alternate reality. right? So the OBE is where it usually pretty much starts. So
the out-of-body experience, for those that don't know, is that you recognize your body, your avatar laying there as yourself, that you are separate from that body. But now, clarifying a little deeper with that, not everybody has the OBE that they recognize their body. They are just experiencing life on that other side. They don't look down and see their body.
Correct. And some of them just have experiences and don't even have an OBE.
Right. Dream visions. Yes, I've heard several of those.
Which they're all kind of tied in, and we'll get on that later. So you've got, what are some of the elements? Like I said, the light, the tunnel.
The tunnel,
beings, usually meeting beings there, spiritual beings, family members that may have transitioned over. My favorite part would be the life review, where you actually are shown all the experiences of your life and how you interacted with other people and the pain you caused others, the pain they've caused you, and what are you willing to forgive, forget, and what are you willing to feel? Because you're going to have to feel the pain of what you've put out. So it's going to come back, and you're going to feel that, and the joy and love and things like that as well.
Exactly, you feel the joy and the love that you shared with others as well. I mean, you could have said something to somebody that you didn't think anything of, just being a natural you, and that brought that person absolute joy and bliss and lifted their spirits, So there's going to be those experiences of the love, the joy that you shared as well.
Right, and that's a very good comment. And to go with that, I would say even on the flip side, even the things you might have said something to someone and didn't think nothing of it, it might have hurt their feelings. You might have,
ingesting,
and they didn't even know it. I mean, you didn't know it, that you actually affected them in any kind of way, but they might have went off and could have broke their heart, could have, and just really made them upset or whatever, or hurt their feelings. We just don't know. So the key is be careful how you use that tongue. Be careful how you speak to others.
Yeah,
because the tongue is so powerful.
Yeah, we just really have to, look at things and listen to people speak without being judgmental, without letting it get on our nerve, without letting it offend us in any way. Just let people speak and say what they got to say.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we all are a work in progress on that, but
I've
gotten better with my age.
Yes, I'm still a work in progress. Like I said, I want to get a T-shirt that says "Work in Progress."
Make me one while you're at it too, please.
Okay. In fact, let's get a couple dozen of them. We got
we'll start handing them out.
There you go. So, but anyway, that's pretty much it. And you've got a few more elements where, there's also the return back to the body. There's lessons that are learned from the experience. Some near-death experiences aren't as pleasant. There's what's called the NDE, or this distressing or distressed near-death experiences.
Right.
And those are comprised of a few elements, basically this, just an experience that you have that just maybe not even make any kind of sense. That's just kind of out there. That could be a kind of distressing because it wasn't pleasant. You couldn't. The void is one.
Yeah, that kind of ties in with the tunnel or the pathway. Is the void. I mean, because they're both kind of in the beginning phases of the experience.
Yeah, and keep in mind, this is something that I'm learning myself. At first when I don't know if it's because of just preconditioning or just learning this stuff, and as I was learning it, a lot of us, we think that black or that void represents a darkness. However, my understanding is that also can represent just pure bliss, pure nothingness, where all things started, because black.
Exactly, yeah.
Black is, it's supposed to be, that also a peaceful state as well, because it's all colors combined.
Right.
So just because it's a void or darkness doesn't necessarily, I would say, constitute it to be a distressed NDE.
Right.
Because maybe sometimes people start in the void.
Think about the beginnings of the biblical earth. It was darkness and void.
Okay.
then everything else sprang forth from it. So
Yeah.
it's not always a bad thing to have a dark void experience.
Right.
It's what our minds make it, our conditionings, our teachings, our lessons that we've went through in our life that creates these events that happen throughout the NDE.
That's right.
It's going to be what we make it
Which makes
from
it,
our
that's
conditionings.
what makes it personal, is because these NDEs are basically based on your experience in life. The people
Exactly.
you've had associations with, your family, these things like that, your choices that you've made, the people you've interacted with, the people you've dealt with, the things that you said, the things that you did, the things, and mine would be the things I said, the things I did, the people I met, the things I experienced, so, and the same with this person over here. So that's the beauty of it. It's all personalized. Now, there are other influences. Now, keep in mind, while we're on the subject of the NDEs, just because a person has what they would call a distressing NDE or a hellish, they don't always necessarily stay there. They'll go through that experience, correct? The hybrid, and then somehow either they'll call out, or they'll acknowledge something, or they'll see something. Something happens where they'll transition from that dark, hellish, scary thing to a more positive or whatever.
More pleasant, yeah.
More pleasant, yeah. That's where that light comes in. So
yeah, and that's what I was going to comment on too, was the bright light earlier when you had mentioned it, is that bright light is really different for a lot of people. Some see it as a bright white, some see it as the blue tints, but it's as bright as it's not blinding.
that's what I've heard. A lot of times they said you should be blinded by looking at that light, but it's the brightest light they've ever seen.
It doesn't even hurt your eyes.
But it doesn't hurt your eyes. Yeah.
Your spiritual eyes.
That's what it is. You wouldn't be able to look upon it with human eyes.
Right.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Very good point.
And also, you had mentioned meeting deceased loved ones.
Yes.
I'm hearing a lot about your loved pets, your fur babies.
Let's talk about that.
That you've lost.
I've heard a lot about that as well.
So that's very interesting because, of course, I have pets that I've lost, and a lot of us do, but I never thought about seeing them again. I think about the movie All Dogs Go to Heaven, what my kids used to watch when they were little, and it's like, it didn't make sense to me then, but now looking back on that, it's like, that's a pretty cool concept to have come up with, that, we will now get to see our deceased fur babies.
Yes. You hear so many NDEs where people had the actual near-death experience and, go through the OBE and all the spiritual experiences that go along with that. A lot of them are actually greeted by their pets that they lost,
Yeah.
They see them. I'm just going to put this out there. A disclaimer, I don't know.
I've never had an NDE, so I can't.
I'm just putting it out there. This is what I've heard. So y'all can take it as it is, or you can, it's up to you. But I got to make the disclaimer. But I've even heard of experiences where the animals are also talking to you in a way that you communicate. Typically, telepathically. You're communicating,
right.
And you can understand them here on the earth plane. They give you ways to communicate with you. The animal kingdom does. However, I've heard of NDEs where not only are they there, but you can actually communicate with them in a way like we're talking with each other. But it's telepathically on the other side.
Yes,
communication is
even with the life review, the meeting the deceased loved ones. It's not something
verbal,
that
physical, like we know here.
Exactly. It's all telepathic.
Yeah.
So that's very
Another
interesting.
Element of that,
the spiritual side communicates telepathically.
And from what I understand is whatever you think of, bam, you're there. It's
right.
Here you have to you think of something and it takes a linear progression or a time to get to that, but over there on the other side, you think it, bam, you're there.
Right.
Yeah, so I thought that was very interesting as well.
Most definitely, yeah. And also the feelings of peace and unconditional love, the sense of being home, that you've been there before. So that is very common in the pleasant NDEs.
Yeah. Home.
Home,
Let's
yes.
talk about that. I mean, I hear this. I mean, I know 80% plus or more,
Yeah.
almost in all of them, not all of them, but I mean, almost, but you hear it so often. It was like being home, or I was finally home, or I made it back home. Let's talk about that home. I mean, because, are we not taught and believe that Earth is our home? Is it not?
That's what we're led to believe because of the physical.
Yeah, it would be more, I guess, the physical home. Earth is more the physical home.
But the spiritual, I mean,
that's
that
a whole different world.
Yeah, that is amazing that we hear so many of these accounts that have this sense of being there before, that sense of home on the other side. And it just really, if you've heard me say it once, those listeners, you've heard me say it 100 times about the Remember book. If you got a chance to read it, you like reading, go get the book. It will definitely hit home on a lot of cases on this subject, because it talks about we came from somewhere else to here on earth and forgot who we are and everything about us. So it ties in with that feeling of being home, that sense of you've been there before. I've
been hearing a lot of that myself lately too. And when you really get into this world and start looking into this stuff pretty deep, you realize that it comes from so many different sources that, we actually choose our lives. We choose the life we want, and we are coming from a different place, that we come down here into this realm, this dimension. It's what we call the third dimension, where everything's physical and touching. You can touch things. It's physical, but we're so much more than what we are right here, and only a part of us came here.
Right, yeah.
That's
part
animating
of us is there.
This body, and our true soul and source is connected to the main source.
Exactly.
But a piece of that source or that being broke off, or that's who we are. That's just a part of us that's here in these bodies.
Right, and that's why you hear a lot of people talk about the higher self. That higher self is that remains in that realm.
Oh, yeah.
On the other side of the veil. So when you want to reach out and connect to it, that is the all-knowing. And that's another common thing in the NDEs is the all-knowledge, the sense of knowing everything from this to that. It is an instant download as knowing.
Yeah, instant.
Yes.
And it's like, I like how you say it. To me, it's plugging back into source. It's returning to source. It's returning to who you are, which is what we call God. It's what we call source. This life, some call it life. This being, this spirit, this source, this, if you want to call it creator, heavenly, whatever.
If you want to call it by a name,
if you want to call it God, if you want to give it a name, that's fine. If that brings you closer to it, that's fine. But the point is, I've even heard if it can be named, then it's not the real deal.
I've heard that as well.
Because names is what
human construct. We have to name things and
we use
identify
names.
with them.
Correct.
Right. And then that is beauty on that we do get that instant knowledge. I mean, there's so many of us, and I'm going to include me in that have walked around knowing it all, feeling they know it all, especially going through your teenage years. I mean, come on, who hasn't been through it that they knew more than their parents?
Definitely, when you haven't been a teenager in many years, so what's your
Exactly.
excuse?
So actually plugging back in, that returning back to source, you do get that all-knowing. So that is amazing for me. I mean, I really like that aspect of, just being able to, like one example was a little boy was sitting out in the yard playing when he was 8 years old. And he wasn't aware of how many leaves were on a tree, but in that moment, he knew how many leaves were there, how many insects were around him. So that's that all-knowing that comes back to the people that's having these experiences. It's awe-inspiring. It is
really
beautiful, yes.
And not only do you hear stories of being able to see all these insects, but I've even heard of one seeing all the little bugs and critters that's all over you, on your eyelids, and on your eyebrows,
yes.
and on your ears, and on your
whole
there's things you can't
being.
even see, you can't even comprehend. And
Right.
this one guy in his NDE, he said I can even see the
Eyelid bug.
his eyelids. Yeah,
Yeah,
So
a lot of people don't know that.
the
so,
detail
yeah.
is just so vivid over there. There's so much.
Right.
The point is, there's so many different critters and beings
Creation,
and
the visible-
creation and animals and things we can't see, and
Seen and unseen.
then that goes into then you can break off and go into so many more dimensions, and realms
Yes.
within this construct, and there's multiple constructs, and there's what we call the multiverse, and there's multiple universe. I mean, there's life just goes on. It's got to keep going on. It's just not right here and right now.
Exactly.
Life can only be experienced in the now.
On this side of the bell.
Correct, on this side. It can only be experienced right now. Now, another element that I like about the NDEs would be the 360 view.
Yes, I was going to mention that earlier. I'm glad you brought that back up. Yes, you hear that so much that it is 360. Even blind people having been born blind, never seeing anything their whole life, when they had their NDE, come back talking about seeing in 360.
In 360, yeah.
Yeah, so that is amazing what the spirit actually sees.
It is. That's beautiful that you say that, because it reminds me of that story with Dr. Jeffrey Long. We had a patient that was born blind, and she had an NDE. And when she came back, he had questioned her about the experience, and she said that it's the first time she was ever able to see. It was so beautiful to be able to see, and and see everything in front of you, around you, behind you, and in a 360 like that. And Dr. Jeffrey told her, he said, well, humans don't really see 360. We see more of a certain peripheral view in front of us, and so far to the left, so far to the right, but you can't see.
And she's like, no,
size.
that's
and
not the way I saw it.
She was arguing with him. She said, no, you see 360. And he's like, no, we don't see 360. We see. So it just goes to show you right there. And that's not the only experience of the 360. The 360 vision is very common.
It is very
common. Many of these. Okay,
Yes.
now, another thing that plays a vital role, let's talk a little bit about cultural, of course, is a very, very big influence. But I'm also looking at the religious
yeah.
influence. Let's talk about that, because you have people who have near-death experiences, and the main being that they recall or seeing come back, is a reflection of something that they know, or something that they see as to be that divine, perfect, picture of love. Many cases it would be in the form of Jesus. Mm-hmm. It would be in the form of maybe like Krishna. I've heard of these, Vishnu, even Buddha. Heard that. So you hear these different. So let's talk about that a little bit. Now, what I believe that this is source appearing to that individual in the way that individual needs to be connected to that source. And I don't know if I'm making any sense or not, but would you like to comment on that, please?
Yeah, we hear a lot of that as, the what your knowledge is of religion is sometimes influenced in the NDE through. Now, there's atheists out there that didn't believe in God that saw, an Indian deity, like I think it was Vishnu that they saw, and came back and believed in, the higher source, that something higher power. There's those that had their experience and were Christian and saw Buddha. I mean, there's all kinds of different variations of the higher power, the way they express themselves to the individual, and it is not always based on what you believe and what you know is truth or think is truth. It varies in that. And there's those that do believe in the Jesus and the God of the Bible that do experience the Jesus and God of the Bible. But like I said, there's so many variations of the deities that is projected in these NDEs.
Yes, very, very good point. So let's look at something else. Let's take a look at the decision point.
Yes, exactly. Some NDEers are given the option to stay where they are in that spirit realm, or to come back to Earth and reincarnate with the body again.
Yeah.
So, that is sometimes the case. Sometimes there's not. That, the spirits are there, then they want to stay there, but yet they are told, no, you're going back.
You have to go back.
And they fight and put up a fuss about having to come back.
Especially when they have to go back into that, once they get a look at that body that they've got to go back into, they say that's even worse. But just the fact that you said, like, being there in that realm of peace and love and just everything, and then knowing that you have to go back to this realm where, people don't love like they do on the other side.
Right. They explain it as an indescribable love that they have felt. I mean, even for the parents out there that, their children, they have an unconditional love for their children, but it's way beyond that even.
Could it be actually, like we said earlier, tying right back into that source?
I believe it is.
And when you connect with the source, then you're feeling all that love. I mean, that to me makes the most sense. You're going back to home. You're going back to that source. That is love. That's what we call God as a source. It's that love. Mm-hmm. It's a spirit, that energy. That is in everything.
Most definitely, most definitely. It's beauty in itself, and I love these listening to these accounts, and just because I can glean something from every single one of them. And actually take that and apply it and learn and develop my spirituality, develop my higher self. I mean, just really gain knowledge from these.
Absolutely. And it's not coming from a religious text that could have been influenced by, some other person. And anytime you read a book or any kind of, an experience, or I wouldn't say it's necessarily an experience, but let's say read a book that tells you how to live. Mm-hmm. Or says you have to live by certain rules and regulations. I mean, take the good out of it. I mean, but what's already in there, you already know. You know what's right and wrong.
Exactly,
you know what's good and bad. You know it's wrong to hurt another person or to harm something or someone else.
Right.
You know this on some kind of level. You know that you want to be loved. Then you need to learn how to love, because that's how we get love. You got to love to be loved. You got to understand the concept of love.
Right.
But love is an action word. It's something you've got to do, or just be. I wouldn't say do, just be love, mm-hmm. And everything else should come natural.
Right, most definitely. And speaking of that decision point, going a little past it, that returning to the body, a lot put up that fight that they don't want to go. And this sense of the spiritual largeness, how so vast and big they are really out of the body. Yeah. And a lot of them have the comments of, I'm going to fit back in that little thing, that tiny thing. Also, the sense or feel of heaviness. There's so many descriptions of the heaviness. It feels like mud, all over them, a very... despondent, confined. They just don't like being back in this body, having been out of it.
Yes, you hear that so much. Now, before we get too far of the returning back into the body, let's touch base on a couple more little elements real quick. I was thinking of that we hear a lot of on these NDEs. We were on the religious subject a while ago. We hear a lot of the NDEers say that on the other side there are no religions. And we've talked about this a few times throughout our podcast, but let's talk about that as well. So many people favor their religion, and if you're not careful, they allow that religion to divide them or separate them from the rest of humanity. Parts of humanity, yeah. And when the truth is, we are all part of humanity. And
Right.
if your religion separates you and creates that
Division.
cops and robbers, us versus them, we are the chosen, they are the devil or the satanic or the worldly or whatever,
Right.
anytime you get involved or get to the point where it starts to separate you,
Us and them,
cops and robbers, you run. And that's
Exactly.
the bad thing about religion, is because most religion feels that they are a special, chosen from a divine source, and that their leader is the way to go, and that goes from everywhere from Jesus to Buddha to Muhammad to so many religions, Zoroastrianism, with back to the Medes and Persians. Way back in history that we have that element, a lot.
Yes, most definitely. And the one thing that I have heard multiple times lately through different sources is that those religions are there to bring you closer to source.
Correct.
And that all roads, repeat this again, all roads lead to source.
That's right.
I heard that when I was a J-Dub, and I'm like, oh no, there's only one path, our path. And hearing this through the channels that I've listened to and everything, they're all saying the same thing. There is no religion on that side, only love.
Only love.
Yeah, so no religion. You're going to leave the religion on this side of the veil
Yeah.
because it divides.
Exactly. And even your political choices that if you're part of a political thing, if you support Democrats, or if you support Republicans, or you support any kind of political party, well, I hate to disappoint you, there are no political parties on the other side.
Politics and religion don't carry over.
None of it. Those are all
Human
man-made
construct.
human constructs that are really made to separate us all and to
divide.
eventually divide.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of the other side, is the unity. And that unity is more than just all the collective of the spiritual mind that can communicate telepathically, but the earth and everything here on this side of the veil is connected as well. We are all one with the plants, the animals, the trees. Everything is connected through that source energy.
Yeah. Well said.
Well, I mean, it come from, that those different sources of being, different beings, entities channeling through these people, letting us know, hey, this is what it's like on this side of the veil. You don't carry the pain, the hurt, the negative, the
It can't
divisions
exist over there.
over on this other side. It's purged out through the life
can't.
review and
Right.
everything. So you go through with a clean slate.
And also to go with that thought, I remember we were watching an interview with Dr. I don't recall his name. I mean, there's been so many of them we've been studying with. But anyway, he works with dying patients, not the NDEs.
Dr. Kerr.
That's it. Thank you. He works with individuals who are at that point in life where
In nursing homes and in long-term care
point
facilities.
of dying.
Yes.
Yeah. Even children.
Yeah.
From whatever reason. But he says he's literally been there at the bedside with thousands of deaths.
Yes.
And so he shared a lot of elements as well, but he said a lot of times towards the end there, especially the older folks, you start going through different things in your life that you wish you would have done different, or you wish some things you regret, some things you wish you would have done, some things you wish you wouldn't have done, that kind of thing, And that also, to me, kind of ties in with the actual life review.
Right, yeah.
Because to me, we talk about here on this show that the life review is more of the purging. Life review is to get you back where you need to be, to go back to source, because from what I understand, there is no hell,
Right.
a punishment, a torture on the other side, like religion has taught,
Right.
But you are going to have to be purged. You're going to have to experience what you put out,
Exactly.
good and bad.
Yes.
And it makes the most sense, to put things back in balance.
Yes. We have to do that in our lives here. Just put out the good.
Absolutely.
Get away from the hate and this division, the individualism.
Yeah.
Because it brings you down. It lowers your vibration, and you want to stay in a high vibration to
It
have that
distorts
positive.
perception too.
Yes.
It distorts your perception of who you are.
Right, because we're more than this physical body. We are more than this avatar that we are animating.
Yeah.
We sometimes get blinded that, this is who I am, this is all there is, but that's not the case.
Part of the illusion.
It's the illusion, yeah.
Yeah. We touched base on it earlier, but it's pretty much, after you go back into the body, you go into different ways, and it's more painful going back in than it is coming out in most cases.
Exactly, yeah.
A lot of times they don't even feel the transition coming from the physical over into the other realm,
yeah.
But coming back into the physical, it's not too pleasant in a lot of situations.
Exactly.
And of course, the life lesson. What did they learn from it?
Right, and a lot of them come back with the no fear of death after that. A lot of them had fear, of that. And most of us, I would say, do at some point throughout our life. Me, at this point, I'm not as fearful as I used to be of that, because I know now that I will be reconnecting with Source, and that this is the life that I'm looking forward to, not here and now, but that spiritual life.
Absolutely, absolutely. This may be a little tad bit longer than a normal episode, because I just wanted to inject a final thought here. Looking into like the Tibetan Book of the Dead, one of the things they teach is, to get into a certain state of calmness and peace when you're getting ready to die in transition, when you know you're going to die. They said, don't be worried about holding on to this world. Don't fight it. Don't fight it.
Right.
And don't have any kind of fear. Any kind of fear is going to take, and you're going to have to, that fear is going to take you to a different realm, because in your mind you're crossing over with fear, so you're probably going to have some distressing experiences, okay? But you always have to understand that all this is going on in your mind.
Right. It's what we create in our own minds.
Create this realm, absolutely.
Yeah.
So just as a final thought, look at how the world has trained and conditioned us to have this fear of death.
Fear lowers your vibration.
Yeah. And you got the whole medical world. Everybody's in fear of dying because, wow, they want to save you, keep us alive. It's a little longer. No.
That's not the real life.
So many people are going to be carrying this fear over into that next realm. Mm-hmm. You're probably going to have distressing experiences until you get that balanced out.
Right. And the one thing with the distressings is, there are those that have come back that had just the distressing, that they didn't have what's termed the hybrid, where, at some point in their distressing experience, they called out, and then they went to that more positive, the pleasant, the light side of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that they actually do. They'll experience the darkness, and then they'll acknowledge that, hey, either God save me or help, or wait, I don't want to be here.
The help is there when you're in that low point. You just cry out, hey, help me, and then it changes, because we all have fears that or things you're going through in your life to where you could cry out for help, and that's when help most of the times comes. So it carries over through into the NDE when you're stressed and fearful.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, well then I'll tell you what, let's go ahead. I don't want to. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up. I know we went a little bit over this time, so hopefully we can be able to squeeze everything in within our limits there. So I've enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Daphne, for coming out today.
Yes, thank you for having me. I enjoyed
well, you are the co-host on this program, so you got to be here anyway. So
Sure.
Okay, guys, we love you all so much, and may peace be with you all. Until next time,
let your light shine.
For more information about the NDE World Podcast, visit nde.world. That's nde.world.